Okay, anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so today I want to show you our new version of testing in QA, which is very interesting to us and helpful, and I hope that we can get as much as possible feedback. First question here, how do you is not a member of the community of Mozilla? Okay. So I want to give then a quick overview about what is related to our Firefox, what we have to do for release testing, automation helps us here, who is in QA. There's only one point which is related to cloud source testing, but it's the biggest part here, which is about Mozmill-CLI and the end, how it is demonstration how it looks. So what does it mean for us QA for the releases? So for Firefox 4 beta, we have lately switched to release cycles of 2 weeks. That means a lot of testing for us, and there are mostly hundreds of bugs which have been fixed, new improvements have been ended. So the owners of the different components have to watch all the bugs have been verified and fixed, and that's a lot of work. Besides the Firefox 4.0, we have 2 security branches we support still with 3.5 and 3.6. We have security releases about 4 to 6 weeks, which have normally 50 to 80 bugs fixed, and those 2 releases normally happen at the same time, so we have to do the twice of work for those releases. And lately, when we have the 2 week schedule of Firefox 4, we had 2 releases at the same time to handle. So what is necessary for us for testing the releases? It's more what I thought before Firefox 4.0, we have to do some exploratory testing. We have our scripting testing on Litmus. We have to run for all the areas which have been changed. That's also the second point here. So we have approximately 40 different smoke tests we have to run on each platform, and about 330 BFP tests we run normally only on one single platform because very a lot of work for us. One person would need about 1 day to run through all of those tests, and that happened 2 years ago with the automation in place. We are much faster now. I can give you some numbers on the next slide then. The time for shipment for both 4 and for 3.6 and 3.5 to the beta audience is mostly in the time range of a couple of days. So we have 3 or 4 days of testing to make sure that we deliver a good product to our beta audience, and then we have for the older branch releases, security releases, about 1 week until we release to the public. Besides the normal tests, we also have to run a couple of update tests. So we have to make sure that users of older releases of Firefox gets correctly updated to the most recent version. So what we are doing is we are testing the previous version. For example, we have released 3.6.14 or we released 3.6.14, so we have to test 3.6.13. We have to test older releases. So we have different updates. So if we have the most or in the latest release, we get a partial update, which is normally only 3 to 4 megabytes in size, and the complete update will download the whole build, which is depending on the OS 10 or on OS 6. 30 megabyte. For testing, we have different channels. So what I told before, we have a couple of days until we release to the beta audience. So for that, we have the beta test in the beta channel. So beta test is only for us, so we can make sure that the updates gets correctly delivered to the users, and the beta channel finally puts everything out to our beta users. And the same happens then for release testing and for the release channel itself. So we are running there with a couple of builds, and in the former time everything has been done manually, and it was a lot of work for us. Now we have automation in place, and we call it Mozmill. It's a functional testing framework you can use, so we have actually automated about 110 tests out of the 230 tests from our Litmus test suite, and it's about 30%. So when we run those tests on the platforms, those are done in 7 minutes, and we can run everything parallel on all the support platforms. So we're really done in 10 minutes with everything prepared for one day for one person to run through all those tests. This is pretty amazing. And the remaining 200 tests, we have people who are running those tests manually in the remaining 2 days, and to make sure that everything works as expected. What I've started lately is the execution of localization tests for all localized builds. So we got a great feedback here. So I will come back to that later for the demonstration, so I can explain it to you a bit better. And what is really done is the fully automated update test. So we can really scrape the FTP server, get all the builds, and run everything automated. So we don't have to do anything. We only trigger the update test and then get the results, then report that, release engineering, and then we are okay. And what I've already told, we run all those tests on all platforms in parallel. So who is in QA? QA itself is not so large, so the core team is only about 30 people. So those 30 people working in different areas, desktop, mobile, services, and automation. And we have a couple of other contractors who help us for releases. So and that's a really quite a small team, and we really need all the automation in place so we can manage all those many different releases we have at the moment. Additionally, we have a lot of committee members here who run through our manual tests we have in Litmus, mostly on a daily basis. I think most of the users are currently nightly users, so what Chris already told yesterday, we have about 80,000 nightly users for Firefox for all builds, and about 15,000 for all the Firefox branches. And something that's really a pretty huge number for us. And we want to really get those people to help us here in testing. And that's really something we want to do with the crowdsourcing. So I come over now to the real content of this presentation. So we want to get these users to run our tests, to report everything to us, so that we can use those testing results to improve Firefox. We have a great community around the world. That's probably the best thing we can have at other companies. So we have people in each country around the world who can run our tests in the localized version of Firefox, and with extensions installed and whatever else. So that's pretty helpful for us. We only have good outreach that we have to the extension right now. So what do we expect from crowd testing? What I mentioned before, we want to have a higher quality of localized builds, so we can add more and more tests depending on the feedback from localizers, what they want to have tested. And we don't know anything about the system where those tests run on. Normally, on our side, we have some systems running the daily test. We know the configuration, we know how much the memory on the CPU, how long it takes. On the user system, we don't know nothing about that. So that's really pretty can be give us really pretty good information. So we want to partial this in the future. The same what I skipped here for different locations on the globe. So depending on the redirects, when you see you're in France, you open Google and you get redirected to the French page, or you are in Australia, you have the Australian page, so that we can also find out if there are differences depending on where you are located on the world. And last but not least, what I mentioned here already, performance-related information. So that can give us good information how So we have got before here startup times and all that stuff, so we can grab the information too. So what is necessary for us? In the past had been shown that installing Mozmill is quite difficult for the users. So we wanted to have something which makes it really easy to install Mozmill on the user system. And any installation you want to do should not affect the global system of the user. Yeah, so we only have a test environment located on the user system. We install software inside the test environment, but nothing else gets polluted. And that was one requirement what we had here. And all the needed tools which are necessary to run our Mozmill test on the Mozmill-CLI environment, we have pre-configured, which gets downloaded, extracted, and prepared everything. And that's really everything you really need for that. And so, additionally, as more tests we have, as more feedback we can get from our users, localizers, add-on authors, and that's one reason why we have to add more and more tests. We're waiting for feedback, so we can work on to add more test scenarios and to get more feedback. We like that when users are running our tests, it doesn't tell when they have the results locally on their own box. So it's really important for us to get those results. So we have to make sure that we can report all the results and we can use this for analyzation, so we can identify the problematic areas. And last but not least, we have to promote it even more, so more and more people know about this extension. And it helps a lot, we have already seen. So how it works, we have implemented it as an extension itself, so it's compatible with Firefox 4.0 and Firefox 3.6. I've skipped 3.5 because this brand will not live any longer, so we don't have to care about that, and I think most people will actually run those tests in Firefox 4.0, so that's completely fine. We have automated completely the setup of the environment, so you only have to click one single button, so everything gets prepared, you can run the test, and that's all we have to do here. And the largest part is installing the extension. So you have to restart the browser, so we don't have a checkback for that yet. We will see what can be done in the future. For the UI, we have a really simplified UI where you can say which application you want to test, which test run you want to execute. And I will add some more stuff in the future. For the moment, it's important for us that we can run our tests, send the reports, and we can analyze those reports. Although we have to make sure that when we run those tests, users are always operating on the latest version of the test, because only we fix tests on a daily basis. Those gets checked in the repository, and users really have to use those. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense for us. And you can this part execute and report to our database. Here, a quick chart how it works itself. So you are running Firefox in your normal daily user profile. You have installed the Mozmill Cloud extension in this profile. One thing we have to take care about is when we are running those tests, there can happen data loss or whatever else. So we cannot use the user's profile. So we always have to execute our tests in another profile, in another Firefox instance. So all that stuff is only possible via our test environment. So Mozmill is running as a command line interface. It's a Python test environment. So from the extension, we call it Python process, and it executes Firefox with a testing profile, Mozmill as extension installed. So these two processes can communicate with each other. We get the latest tests and scripts from the repositories, execute the test, and finally can report to our database. What I mentioned before here, some results, what we got from our LTN tests. This is one test for, I think, BG locale, Bulgarian, I think. So we are testing here in this specific case access keys, if they are used multiple times in the same scope, which is normally not allowed. And at the same time, we are also testing elements which are cropped. It can happen that when you translate Firefox to your own language, most of the time that the string gets longer, and if you don't adjust the width of the window or the tab element, it gets cut off. So this good test we have in place at the moment. We have some bugs in there, so mostly we rely now on the access keys. So I don't know if you can read this stuff from the back. So you get a list of elements which are affected by some multiple usage. It's really hard to read. That's why we have the feature in place that we can create screenshots from the specific cases. So it's easier to see here. All the names here with the underline. These are the access keys. So they are used multiple times. So you really can see, okay, these elements, we have to update all the entities. And it's pretty helpful for localized access. And we got a lot of check-ins in the last days. That's what we have reported. So I think we will continue to run all of tests against the next beta and final releases. So what's left for us? Only some points here. We don't know how reliable our tests are. We run our tests in our system, so we know what happens, but we don't know how reliable those are in other locales or on other systems. So that's something we have to figure out here, and how we have to improve our test interface. We have big problems with the focus. So the test itself, or the Firefox instance under test, has to run in the front, always in the front, because the user cannot switch the application. Otherwise, any test which relies on text input and the auto pop-up will fail. So that's something we could have a solution. So we are working together with the Selenium guys who have implemented native events, and it can help us here. But we are not sure yet if we can implement it in our which way we want to choose here. But it's a really interesting and really big problem we have to solve. What I mentioned before, for now we only allow to run our tests completely. It takes 7 minutes, and in the future we have implemented all the tests. It can take about 30 minutes. So we really have to find ways to allow the user to select types of tests, or he can select tests if you want to run, he can, or to help us in fixing program tests. All the stuff will be included in the future. For now, it's really only for the test execution. Important for us here, we have started with an test which was a great success. In the next quarter, we will continue with add-ons. So we will ask add-on authors to create Mozmill tests for the add-ons, so we can run those tests on our side and from the cloud. So I think that's a great feedback to make sure that the add-on is working correctly. And something else, our endurance test we have done already, or we have started with, so we can measure the performance of Firefox over time. By doing the same stuff again, like opening tab or open Panorama, close Panorama all the time for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and we have already seen some great interesting facts out of those tests. And finally, we really need feedback from you. Okay, so sure about time, Brian. So
yeah,
we have
5 more minutes.
Okay, so I have a bit prepared here already. So this is a length profile. So as you can see, Cloud is not installed yet. I will simply install restart the browser, and it appears in the tools menu. So we have Cloud interface here. By default, it has been selected the application you are currently running, and you have a set of different tests you can run. The general test run, the first one is what we are running for our release tests, which are one-to-one copy of the litmus test. End tests are access keys and cropped elements, and add-ons tests. We only have two add-ons here. We are testing only 1 or 2 tests, which is only for step. To figure out what we can do here. As a next end test run, I want to run it with my Mozmill build, and let's start. In this case, I've already prepared the test environment, so I haven't relied on the network here. So normally it takes up to 5-10 seconds before everything has been set up. Here's another instance of Firefox gets started with another profile, and in this case we are running through the preferences dialog, each sub-element, each sub-window. We have to check for multiple access keys. We have to run it twice. Now we check for the cropped elements. We collect all this information. We create screenshots for those test failures which appear, and we should have been sent the information. I will have to check in the preferences. We send it to the cloud database. So I can wait a second. So it should appear here at the top. Yeah, that is correct. So we run this. We have 2 parses up, but also 2 test failures. So when we click on here, we see that there's a big number of things which we have identified here. These are for cropped elements, which is not currently working correctly. That's important bit here for the access keys. Those elements, those entries I show in the screenshots. At the same time, we have saved the screenshot on disk, so you can really that's another look in here. But you already have it present on your disk, so you can work on that. You can fix your problems in your locale. You can run the test again until everything appears correctly. Okay, so if you want to get more information, Mozmill Cloud can be found on AMO. If you are interested to help us to create tests or have any ideas how we can improve our testing, join us on quality.mozilla.org. Mozmill code on GitHub, Mozmill tests. If you're interested in to write some tests, and we have even more areas, you can help us. Yeah. Any questions at the end?
You're creating a new profile before running the test.
Yeah.
Maybe by duplicating the user profile could give you more tests with the used Firefox.
We have some problems with some extensions. So for the normal DFT test or general test run we are doing, we can't do it this way. Yeah. But it should be easy enough to set an option where we can edit a checkbox. We can check it if you want to have an existing profile, so we can clone it and can use this profile for testing. It's doable, but not at the moment.
In this system, how do you deal with false positives? Is there any handling of false positives?
Not right now. So we don't have any idea. The question was how we handle false positives test results. So we don't have any idea yet. We have updated the add-on to AMO 2 weeks ago, so it's really fresh on AMO. So I'm just waiting for the feedback. We haven't gotten so far anything. So once we know what we have to do, I can give you the answer. But for now, sorry, I haven't. One more time, Brian, or for one question?
Yeah, we're fine for a couple more questions. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Excellent.
Quick one. How does Mozmill decide when to actually restart the browser?
We have 2 different types of tests. We have non-restart tests and we have restart tests. So at the moment there are 2 different applications, and we call it separately. In the future, for Mozmill 2.0, which will be released by end of March, we will combine it to one single extension. So we have manifest files that we can indicate, okay, this tests in this folder are normal tests, and this folder contains restart tests. So we are creating a fresh profile before we execute the test in a folder, and for the restart we're using the same profile again and again and again. So we really can test the installation of add-ons, uninstallation or theme installation, switching of themes, and that's possible in that way.
Yeah, I'm asking because, like for the out-and-end test run, the startup and teardown is about as long as the actual test that we run. So we could sort of cut off time by running both the crop test and the SSD test.
We have to find out how we can reset the UI. That's the main problem we had, because we are storing it in the local store RDF. So we somehow have to reset everything. If you have an idea, I would be up for that. So we can remove it with the normal test.
Ponies, so that's therefore perfect.
So
yeah.
if we can find a way, we can define and move those tests to non-restart tests. So don't forget to execute trigger. Okay. If no one else has questions, you can find me around here, so we can talk to that. Thanks.